Welcome back. We are in week 7 of our Good and Beautiful Life series. I hope that you've been finding this time fruitful and enriching. I know I have. And I hope that you've been able to practice some of these disciplines and that you won't just restrict these disciplines to this time period that we have going through the study, but that they will become friends and disciplines that you use for the rest of your faith journey. So today we're talking about a particularly difficult one, and that is blessing those who curse you. We live in a world where we have the false narrative that if someone punches you, punch them back harder. And the false narrative here is that the only way to protect yourself is with violence. And when we think of violence, we might think just in physicality, but that's not the case. We can definitely be violent with our words. And so maybe if we're parenting or if we're leading a small group and we're wanting to see certain results within the people that we're leading, sometimes we might lean with words of guilt in order to shape behavior. That's a form of violence. Because guilt, even though it might produce some kind of results, it never produces lasting results. Guilt is never a good driver for transformation. And it is in fact inflicting a type of violence upon a person, making them feel guilty, making them feel less of themselves in order to gain some kind of desired outcome. And so Jesus addresses this in his Sermon on the Mount, starting in chapter 5, starting at verse 38. You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. You have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even the tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. What I find striking about this passage is that Jesus is showing us what love looks like in the world, and he is inviting us into radical love. He's inviting us into deeper love. That he wants his people to not simply do what everyone else is doing. He wants them to love greater. He wants them to be defined by love. Now, the word that Jesus is using here is agape. And agape is not simply a feeling. It's not just a feeling of love. It is an action. James Bryan Smith says it is to will the good of another person. And so Jesus says, don't just love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Love your enemy. Pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. See, Jesus lived all of this. He prayed for those who beat him, who mocked him, who spit upon him, who flogged him, who crucified him. He reinstates Peter, who denied him, who abandoned him, who ran away. And so really what we're doing is that when we live this way, when we live this radical agape love that supersedes what everyone else in the world does, we actually live out the very character of Jesus. Now, perhaps you're sitting there thinking, okay, great, this was going to be an easy week because I don't have any enemies. I don't have anyone that I would classify as an enemy. And chances are, if you live in North America, that is very much your reality. You don't sense this idea of an enemy. And so for this week, if you do have an enemy, perhaps that's easier for you. You can pray for that person. But if you feel like you don't have an enemy, pray for the success of those that compete against you. Pray for the success of your competitors, or pray for someone who is a difficult person in your life. Pray for their success. Pray that God would bless them. And so for our discipline this week is to think of that person, maybe an enemy, maybe someone we compete with, maybe someone who's just really difficult, maybe someone who just really annoys us, and pray for them. Take a few minutes every day this week to pray for them. If you're a journaler, I would encourage you to journal this down. If you're not a journaler, this might be an opportunity to start. But as you pray for this person, from day 1 to day 7, and beyond if you choose to continue this discipline, write down how you feel toward the person and see if it changes from day 1 to day 7. Stay devoted each day. Pray for this person and see if your heart changes toward them. That is it for us today. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, and God bless.